just to be clear, yeah, we all know probation's struggling right now.
Yeah.
The inspectors of HMPPS and probations have clearly said probation is struggling.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an issue. We know, we've experienced it. You guys know all about it, whether you've been on probation or had a family member on probation. We know there's a problem with it, right? So my thing is this money going to solve the problem first and then build? Or is it going to target just the new wave or influx on the system? Do you get what I'm saying? Because now you're going to have way more people on probation than ever before. Hello and welcome back to Life After Prison with Zak and Jules. And we're back with another episode where myself and Jules delve into a topic that surrounds the criminal justice system. And as we know, recently there's been quite a bit of talk about overcrowding in the prison system. And recently, our Justice Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, has commissioned an independent sentencing review to really delve into ways that they could tackle this issue. And the person that led this review was actually the former Justice Secretary, David Gork, with an aim to find sustainable solutions for sentencing and prison population management. And in today's episode, we're going to have a look at the key recommendations that Shabana Mahmood has highlighted from this report.
Yeah, so this is the kind of conversations we have all the time. We're always talking about what's going on with prisons at the moment, our opinions, our thoughts, other people's, and yeah, something obviously we're both very passionate about. So excited to get into today's conversation. We're going to start with what Shabana Mahmood is actually saying she's going to implement. So the sentencing review came out at the end of May, and here is what she said. First of all, early release for certain offenders. Non-life sentence prisoners may be eligible for release after serving 1/3 of their sentence, provided they demonstrate good behaviour and subject to electronic monitoring.
Yeah.
Go on, do you want to start?
Yeah, so with this, it's a good thing in many ways, but also it's another thing that's got a question mark in it for me, yeah? Like, what does good behavior mean? You know, what's the criteria? But the things we're kind of hearing is that it's going to be based around the IEP scheme, so like enhanced, standard, basic, and whether you're adjudication free. So that in of its own self has some question marks for me, because that means getting an IEP or having an adjudication and having the adjudication not being proven, would that still affect you in terms of good behaviour?
I feel like when you're saying good behaviour, that's quite a good point, because what does good behaviour mean? It's a little bit wishy-washy.
It's blurry.
It's blurry. With most topics around prison, it's a little bit blurry. Obviously, 1/3 of your sentence is quite a big chunk. So that is exciting for people. And, you know, not being in prison is better than being in prison. So yes, good thing.
Yeah.
Just how that looks and how that actually plays out is interesting. Also, I feel like they are talking about something that still isn't tackling kind of like a root cause, root issue. It's like, get people out as soon as we can. However, what are we going to do for people, and how are we going to help them as well?
Yeah. You know, 1/3 of your prison sentence, cool. Is it going to be affecting everybody? So is it something that's going to be implemented new, as in, if you're sentenced from, let's say you're sentenced from X, then you can do 1/3, or is it going to be for everybody in the system? Do you get what I mean? That's in there now. Also,
the good behaviour thing frustrates me a little bit, because you're asking people inside to behave and be really, really good, and that obviously that's what people should be, right? But also there's not many incentives in there to be good and to behave. And
yes,
I'm not saying that that's like an excuse, right? But if people had support, a plan, a path, education, it's easier to want to behave. But
yeah, I hear you.
They're just like, right, behave in this environment, which is really tough, and then you might get out early.
Well, listen, if they're saying, look, 100%, you stay with good behavior, you keep up your good behavior, you're going to do a third of your sentence, I think that would be the biggest incentive for people to behave. Facts. If you know that, for example, you've got a 9-year sentence and you can do 3 years with good behavior, which is a third, then I'm going to behave.
Okay, you're talking about what they have, though, at the moment. So what everybody has in prison at the moment, probably what's going to get them to behave is an early release.
Yeah.
However, if we had other stuff in there, that's more of an incentive to behave in the long run.
Yes.
That's a temporary, let's behave so we can get out.
Yeah. But I think...
Temps.
But I hear you, but I think at the same time, this measures mainly for reducing the prison population or the strain on overcrowding. So I don't think the aim here specifically is rehabilitation.
It's not.
I think it's just easing the system.
That's what's frustrating.
Just to say, it's not a guaranteed third, because if you don't show good behavior, again, it's blurry, you're going to end up doing 40, 50% or even more of your sentence if you have bad behavior. So there's a flip side to it as well, which wasn't clearly spoken about, but this is what's come out in the report. And by the way, that report is 192 pages.
Did you read that?
I skimmed through a lot of it, but yeah, it's a lot to go through.
It wouldn't actually surprise me if you read
No, not the whole of it, not all of it.
Okay, next one. Abolition of short sentences. Prison sentences under 12 months will be largely eliminated, except in exceptional cases, to reduce reoffending rates and to alleviate prison overcrowding. I mean, we've spoken about short sentences before, and they don't really... Going to prison doesn't really help any of those short sentences, and people don't get very far in prison with these short sentences.
Yeah.
So I think really good thing to not have these short sentences, but I think something needs to be in the community to help people.
Yeah, if there's an alternative if they're gonna abolish all of these short sentences, what's going to be in place to support people who are not going to get these sentences? Yeah, but also what is a good thing is, and looking at the positive sides of this, yeah, before we dive into what might not be or what might be, we know that getting short sentences really stops people in terms of rehabilitation, because you can lose your flat. Say you get a year, do 6 months. 6 months, you lose your tenancy, you're out. Before you know it, now you're homeless. You ain't got somewhere to go back to. That's going to majorly affect your rehabilitation. So if we're getting that gone, and that kind of thing helps people keep stability and normality, cool, I'm all for that. But then again, we've got to look at what's going to be in place to replace these sentences.
Well, apparently nothing, because we're not hearing that.
Well, there's a point about it coming up, and we're going to talk about that later.
But just on that,
go on.
You're so right with the it really breaks the rehabilitation, because it breaks homes, it breaks the family connection as well, family ties. So these short sentences, even though they're short, can do quite a bit of damage.
A lot of damage. And I think we spoke to someone from Women in Prisons, Kate Fraser, and she highlighted the fact that these short sentences disproportionately affect women in society. And, we're talking about effects of children going into care, so displacing families, losing tenancies, losing employment. When you're doing a short sentence, 6 months, 4 months, 3 months, all these things, when you can have, or you can serve your sentence in the community. So if all of that, if they're scrapping short sentences and all of those disruptions and issues are removed, and you have stability and normality, then rehabilitation can take place if there's something else in place, as we said, right?
Yeah, I mean, we know that these short sentences do affect women the most. And if you want to check out our episode with Kate Fraser, just type in her name on our platforms.
Yeah, and this nicely brings us to the next key recommendation that was highlighted by Shabana Mahmood, and which makes sense for, scrapping or getting rid of short sentences, yeah? And the next point is the expansion of community-based sentences. So an increased use of community sentences, electronic tagging, and suspended sentences, with the maximum the maximum amount of time for suspended sentences extended from 2 years to 3 years. I'm not quite clear whether it's, because the maximum you could get is 2 years as a 2-year sentence, suspended for 2 years. I'm not sure if that means you can get 3 years suspended for 3 years, or it's just the 2 years suspended for 3 years. But apparently that's what they're going to be putting in place instead of these short sentences.
I mean, all of this does make sense for overcrowding as like one thing, because what they're trying to do is, you know, not have people in prison. However, the last point that comes doesn't really make sense to that, which we'll come on to.
Yeah.
But if we was to flip this and actually have what is going to stop people from going to prison, tag wouldn't be, this point wouldn't be tag, would it?
Boy, if you know, you either have a tag curfew or you're going to a prison cell, what are you choosing, Jules?
Tag, definitely.
All right.
Okay, however, what I think I'm trying to say
is it going to stop me doing crime?
The point, is it going to stop me doing crime? No, because, well, probably not. Maybe.
If you love life and you love your freedom, yes.
But people that have, okay, fine. But the point that they're trying to make is it's the best solution and the quickest way to stop overcrowding prisons, not to stop offending or to help people that are offending, or because the measures would be different.
Of course. And again, this is another thing to deal with the prison population, clearly, because they don't want to send people inside. They rather have people in the community. They're extended suspended sentences to up to 3 years, and they're increasing people on tag, basically. So I think you're right. You've hit a good point. You're saying it's not really working on what's the root cause.
Or
it's
long
working
term.
on
It's right.
cure overcrowding, fix overcrowding. That's what I think.
Which just, it does.
But at the same time, that's
frustrate
what
me.
this report was about. It's about
I know.
finding sustainable sentencing, but also solutions to the prison overcrowding.
But the problem is, the reason why we're here now is because that's never been addressed.
Yeah.
So how far are we going to go? Well, we're going to keep going until, I actually don't know.
I hear you, but all right, cool. So you know what? Just hold that point for now, yeah? Because the next point I'm going to talk about, the next bit is about probation. So what they're saying is that they're going to increase investment in probation service, yeah? So they've announced an annual increase of over £700 million in addition to what the budget currently is for probation service to shift towards community-based rehabilitation. Keyword, shift and community-based rehabilitation, right? So we looked at the first point, talking about abolishment of short sentences. Now we're talking about the expansion of community sentences, as well as people doing shorter sentences. So that means you're either going to be on probation longer, you're never going to go to prison, and you're going to serve your sentence in the community. But now we're going to invest £700 million more, which is a lot of money, to deal with this increase on the probation service.
But what's going to change about probation?
We don't know.
There you go. So, I mean, great that they're actually looking to do something out here for the people that are getting out or not going to prison. But what does that look like, and what is it? So
if they're saying they're shifting towards community-based rehabilitation, that's a blank page. That could mean many different things. Like, in my point of view, we don't know specifics. I'm not sure if the actual report highlights what their recommendations were or what the plan is, but I believe when I listened to Shabana Mahmood addressing the House of Commons about this, she mentioned something about when the legislation's out, things will be set out more clearer. So when they actually put this into law, I think they're going to have to give more details.
Well, this is, to me, the most important part. Yeah. So just what concerns me is we don't know what that looks like, and there's no talk about it. But I'm not going to jump the gun. Like, I would like to see
what they say.
And what that looks like.
Just to be clear, yeah, we all know probation's struggling right now.
Yeah.
the inspectors of HMPPS and probations have clearly said probation is struggling. Yeah. There's an issue. We know, we've experienced it. You guys know all about it, whether you've been on probation or had a family member on probation. We know there's a problem with it, right? So my thing is this money going to solve the problem first and then build? Or is it going to target just the new wave or influx on the system? Do you get what I'm saying? Because now you're going to have way more people on probation than ever before, right? Way more people monitored in the community, more tags.
To me, putting load on probation just seems crazy, but...
Yeah. And apparently what was spent on probation last year was about 1.2 billion pounds.
I feel like this money definitely could be invested in another way to actually help probation out and do something different.
Yeah.
Something different.
Listen, after a while, when you're trying the same thing and it's not working, got to try something else. So hopefully this is the start of something new.
So this, hopefully.
Yeah.
Let's see. So this point, let's just read it. Prison expansion. A 4.7 billion investment to create 14,000 new prison places by 2031, addressing long-term capacity issues.
All right. So on this point, that's a lot of money. And
I love how the money.
Yeah, I know,
but
I know, but it is incredible. It's an incredible amount of money, yeah. But Jules, hear this: they're gonna make from this prison expansion 14,000 more spaces.
Yeah.
What's the whole point of this report? This report, in my mind, you're trying to cut spaces, yeah. And there's a line in the report that says these measures that have been recommended, or the ones they're gonna implement, are gonna cut 10,000 spaces. So why are you building 14,000 more? I don't get it.
Well, this is what I was what I was thinking about earlier in let's rehabilitate people. We know there's just going to be more people going to prison. We're making loads more places and prisons because people are going to continue to reoffend and it's going to keep growing and growing. Whereas if we had a system that is trying to stop rehabilitation, we want less
reoffending.
And stop reoffending.
Yeah.
Then we are trying to reduce the people going to prison.
Yes. So the only thing I can think of them justifying
We've already given up.
No.
Yeah.
Maybe not. And I'm just going to play, not devil's advocate, but I'm just going to try and be as fair as possible. Maybe it's a thing of, all right, we're going to build 14,000 more spaces because the spaces we got right now are overcrowded. So we're going to reduce overcrowding. If you reduce overcrowding, maybe you can focus on rehabilitation more. You ain't got to focus on policing or managing high numbers, right? So you can have more staff to prisoner ratio, if that makes sense. Instead of having one staff being a personal officer for like 20 people, maybe these 14,000 new spaces reduces it to like 1 to 8 or 1 to 7.
Okay, so spreading people out.
Maybe. And instead of 2 people being in a box cell, it's 1 person. So then you've got your own space and it's a bit different.
I did not think of it like this.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe. I'm only trying to be fair because I'm trying to think what the angle,
like what's actually going on here.
What the angle is. Because if not, then you're just trying to send more people to jail. And that doesn't make sense to me. So it has to be something about easing what is happening right now.
We've spoken quite a few times about replicating what prisons are doing well.
Mm-hmm.
So in my eyes, better conditions,
Yeah.
a better system, education, all of these good things that help people thrive and actually rehabilitate. This is what I'm like waiting to see and excited about.
Yeah.
And I don't see any of this written. So this is what I'm hoping that happens is, they are spreading people out. They're going to work on the prisons that are already running because they're spending money on new ones. What about the prisons that are going?
Yeah, and maybe and I hope that they look at it in a way that is, one, proactive, but also solution-based and solution-focused.
The only thing that's...
addressing the root causes.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
The only thing that concerns me about all of this and all of our hopes and dreams is most of it is driven towards, all of the decisions that are made are driven towards having no space and
Also, but
it does say reduce reoffending rates. It does say that. I
Yes.
just don't know
all right,
why.
Cool. So if you're rehabilitated in the community, yeah, and you don't have to go to prison for that, that's saving money.
Reoffending.
It's saving a burden on the system. It's saving cost as well, because it costs to keep someone inside, right? So I guess maybe that's the thinking. Again,
that they are going to be rehabilitated in the
community.
community. We just don't know what that looks like.
Yeah.
Fine.
But also it's saying, like if your prison experience is better in terms of you're not cramped with two men sharing a one-man cell space, you've got time to reflect and focus. You've got time to interact with staff. There's less ratio of inmates to staff. It might help it in there as well.
So I think what I'm thinking in my head is if what we're trying to say would help, that should be in the talks. It should, if that's what they were looking to do, that should be in the talks.
I hear you.
We're going to replicate this prison. Prisoners need space. They need education. They need. I'm just not hearing any of that.
All right. So
that's what I'm saying.
What was actually mentioned in Parliament when Shabana Mahmood addressed Parliament, she said, I went to Texas, I visited Texas, I saw what they did when their prisons out there, so we're trying to do something similar.
Okay.
Yeah.
She said that?
Texas, she referenced Texas.
Okay.
I don't know what that means. I don't know what
Texas
prison she's talking about, but apparently I saw somewhere online that they reduced she said they reduced their numbers of reoffending, they cut that down by a lot, quite a high percentage. So they're trying to do something like that. I guess that's what.
Why do you seem skeptical about that?
Because it's two different places. I say we look closer to home, look at Europe. You're looking at the States.
Right.
Do you get what I'm saying?
So we're copying what Texas are doing.
Trying to emulate something there.
When there's other ways.
There's other things, circumstances around America and
that are doing it differently.
And their system.
But it's working, but we're not following that.
Yeah. So, but I say we could look closer to home, like looking at mainland Europe and what they're doing there, because there's some places that are, their reoffending rates are quite low. But you know what? We could talk about this all day.
Yeah,
There's one more point I wanted to mention, and that's about foreign nationals. So they are talking about the deportation of foreign offenders. So foreign nationals that are convicted of crimes may be deported after serving 30% of their sentence. And I think that's that's significantly less than what they would have to serve before deportation. What do you think about that?
I mean, we discussed this earlier. It's more for the people that this is their home.
That's the thing. Because foreign nationals can be someone who isn't born here, but has spent the majority of their life in this country. So where are you deporting them back to? Their country of birth. I think that my issue with this is more on how you define foreign nationals and are you going to be fair? Because, for example, and I'll just say this briefly. Imagine you came over to this country when you were 4 years old, and at 20 you committed an offence. Did you learn to commit a crime from your country of birth? Not really. You learned that here. So why are you gonna, as punishment, send someone back to a country where they got no ties? Maybe they don't really remember, and they grew up here, where they've got all their family, all their circle, their people, all their ties to the community are here.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
Mm-hmm.
The people that you're talking about,
that
they're going to be deported back anyway, right?
If their sentence is a certain amount. So like if you get certain, I can't remember what it is, but if you get over a certain amount, so I don't know, let's just say, for example, you get a sentence over 4 years, you're eligible for automatic deportation after you serve like 50%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what they're trying to do now is reduce that 50% to 30% and say when you serve the third, deportation.
So you think those people would be better in prison in England, in the UK, than being deported?
I'm not saying that.
I'm just trying to
I
understand.
know that's a good question. What I'm trying to say is I don't think the rehabilitation is I don't think it's fair to send them back to their country of birth when the rehabilitation is, I think the obligation is in this country.
But then in prison right now, do you think they're being rehabilitated?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that you're gonna make them serve half their sentence or a third of it and then deport them. Where's the rehabilitation? I think it should be on us to rehabilitate them.
Fine.
In this country once they serve the sentence.
But do you think that happens here?
I'm not saying it has.
No, but do you think it does?
What, rehabilitation?
Yeah.
Clearly no.
Okay.
Clearly no. It doesn't, across the board, for the majority, no.
Okay.
I don't think so. But what I'm saying is, they
So
don't even want to try.
Okay, fine. This is what I'm trying.
Yeah.
So in an ideal world, you
Yeah.
think that they should stay here and be rehabilitated?
Yes,
Fine.
especially, for example, I'm just saying specifically for the people that have spent the majority of their life
Fine.
in the UK.
And I get that.
Like, I'm not saying, for example, someone's came over a year ago, 2 years ago, in the recent times, and then they've committed an offence. I get that. You want to remove that person. But if someone has spent let's say their childhood, being educated here, been working here, being employed, all of those things, have family ties, children, they're part of the community, and then they've made a mistake or something's happened and they've gone to jail.
Yeah. Then
Then you're going to send them back, huh?
I feel like the point you just made really actually touched my heart a little bit, Zak.
Do you get what I'm
they
saying?
don't even want to try.
They don't.
They don't.
They don't want to try.
Now I understand.
Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you're going to send them back to their countries of birth within 30% of their sentence, that just eases again the strain on the prison population.
Do you know what? It is sad because it's sad how many people we see not being able to thrive after prison and, not being able to thrive in prison either. So obviously something does need to change and rehabilitation needs to be looked at really differently now. And I think the proof is in all of this, that there is too many people going to prison because there isn't the right kind of help in place. Yeah. And I really, really, really want that to be looked at.
When I listen to Shabana Mahmood actually speak about all these recommendations and measures they're going to implement and put in place, it sounded a lot like, and I don't like to get into politics, but it sounded like point scoring. Like, you know what, it was the previous government that did this and that, so we're trying to solve it, so we're trying to do this. I think it's all trying to look good to the public and things like that. Whereas I think what you just said now, if the focus was on that, how we're going to support people, what we're going to put in place, how we're going to cut reoffending, and how we're going to really invest in our services that deal with this, i.e. probation and prisons, then I think we'd have a better outlook on it. But, it's for the general public in terms of how the government's perceived and what they're doing and how they're dealing with crime. You know what I mean? And just to say on that, there have been potential or a lot of challenges to all of these key measures and recommendations that are going to be implemented. And I think it's only fair that we address some of the criticisms that have been made. So we're going to look at Refuge, which is an organization that supports domestic abuse survivors, right? And they're expressing concerns with early release, especially to do with the safety of the survivors of domestic abuse, because if someone's released earlier, it may pose risk to their safety and whatnot. But I think they also want to stress that people that are being released earlier who've committed these offences have to be, managed in a better way, right? That's fair, isn't it?
Yeah, I feel like with this, there's always going to be the other side to it, and it's really important. And a lot of people are probably got so many different thoughts going through their head with all this information coming out. And yeah, it's totally so important. It's just as important. More reason why these people need to be rehabilitated, that a focus needs to be on not just releasing people because it's overcrowding.
Yeah.
Like, it's gonna come with so many different thoughts and feelings and worries.
In fact, refuge go even further and say exclude people that have committed domestic abuse from it.
In fact, it's worrying we're releasing people early because of overcrowding.
Yeah.
If we put it like that,
Yeah.
it actually is. Not because people are okay, if you behave, etc.
Yeah.
You might be able to release early. But if it was, there's less crime, less people going to prison, you know, that's why we're releasing people early.
Yeah. And I think, you know what? I think
Sorry,
a lot
just
of people...
going back to the point.
No, it's fair.
Can you tell I'm upset?
Yeah, no, you're clearly passionate about it, and you're rightly so. But, or should I say, and it's that word early, innit? It's earlier. You know, when we say early, we make it seem, well, it could be the fact that it could be a point that maybe someone's not rehabilitated, maybe someone's not ready, and it's early, like not ready for release, not ready to be someone that's going to contribute positively to society, someone who's ready to start their life again in a different way. Maybe it's early for that, but technically it's earlier because you're going to be released
exactly
at the 50% if you just have standard behavior, right?
Yeah.
But if you have good behavior, you're released earlier.
I think the point I'm trying to make with that is this whole thing is only happening because of overcrowding. And that's the problem. It's overcrowding. Why is it overcrowding?
Yeah.
I think that's the only reason all of this is happening. That's the only reason people might be getting out early. Do you know what I mean? It's because of the root problem is overcrowding. If we weren't overcrowding, this wouldn't even be.
It's like saying, for example, I've got a cut. All right, you've put a bandage on it, but have you sewn it up? If you sew it up, then the bleed stops and it heals. But putting the bandage on it just stops the bleeding temporarily. So I hear what you're saying. You're dealing with the effects rather than the root cause.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you know what? Another organisation has shared something similar, some similar concerns, and that's End Violence Against Women Coalition, who welcomed the expansion of specialist domestic abuse courts, and they're set up to give judges specialist knowledge on domestic abuse cases so they can, I guess, be better informed and make better decisions when it comes to trials and sentencings. But they highlight that there has to be a strong focus on the probation services managing offenders of domestic abuse, right? So their thing is, cool, that's good. You're going to bring in more specialist domestic abuse courts. Judges are going to be better informed. But when people are released, what's probation going to be doing with them? How are they going to be managed? They think there has to be a strong, they have a strong emphasis on what the resources are going to be for probation to deal with this.
Yeah. And I think, that is so important because are probation ready for all of that? Have they got the expertise?
Are there going to be specialist probation officers for people that have, committed these offences? Are there going to be specialist probation officers for people with different crimes? Is it going to be generic? What does it look like? Are you going to have lived experience people in? Are you going to have alternative methods, alternative things? Who knows? Because as it currently stands, things need to change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, it's really important we do talk about that side because, both sides, because this is going to have a lot of people thinking so many different things, and it all needs to be addressed, really.
It definitely does. So obviously these measures were announced in the House of Commons by Shabana Mahmood, and she's the Justice Secretary, right? So it's only right that the shadow Justice Secretary of the opposition of the Conservative Party had their say on what they think about her measures, right? And I just want to highlight one of the phrases that was mentioned. And what he said was that this is a recipe for a potential crime wave in the UK. Strong words.
Yeah.
This is a recipe for a potential crime wave.
Well, obviously they're going to come with some opposition and use deep words, right? But, we don't know how this is going to go. I'm sorry, but has this overcrowding got this bad ever before?
Oh, no.
I don't think it's never been like this. It's all very new for them. It's very new for everybody else. So obviously they're going to come, but it definitely could. Who knows what's going to happen?
However, just to say, yeah, it was his party that was in charge of prisons before. And Shabana clearly mentioned that, like, listen.
Thought you don't like to get into politics.
I don't, but I have to mention this because it's only right, innit?
No, I feel like you want me to say something back to that.
No, you don't have to, but I'm saying, she did say, you know, you guys were in charge of it and this is the point we're at, so we're trying to fix it. But he also did say, the Shadow Justice Secretary said, build more prisons.
With the guy that said that?
He said, this is a potential crime wave and I think instead of putting your budget in there, build more prisons.
But I feel
quickly.
but you know how you are talking about who was in government first and before?
Yeah.
No government has been able to make UK prisons run effectively and smoothly and rehabilitate people.
I'd say not in our lifetime.
You think back then
Who knows? I don't know.
It was better?
I don't know. When about? I'm just saying.
I think before it was now. Prisons were there for punishment. Punishment. Not to rehabilitate people back into society. So I think we're coming out of those days, but we're not where we need to be. So no government has been able to do this.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware.
We need something totally new. So yeah, obviously they're going to have comments of the prison system wasn't working. Yeah. We also spoke to the guys in HMP Brixton on National Prison Radio about these reviews and how it might affect them. Here is what they had to say. So it's a lack of clear communication and tangible effects of people inside. Yeah. And I think this is the people that's going to affect most. So really, we want it to be clear, right?
Of course.
Maybe I need to stop.
No, especially if you're hearing, 30%. Does that mean now?
Yeah. Does it mean people are going to be released early? Because this is going to be stressful. It's going to be talks on the wings. But, they really need to know.
Yeah.
They have ideas on how best to spend the money.
Yeah, because there's a lot of figures being mentioned. 4.something billion to build prisons, 700 million.
And they agree with rehabilitation, What else do they say about spending the money?
They also said, what is it going to be spent on? What does it mean?
But how did they say it should be spent on?
Oh, they said different things. They said focusing on ways that people can basically not go to prison.
Yeah.
What can you put in place that will stop someone going into prison? Are you addressing the underlying issues? Are you increasing people that have, say, mental health support needs? Are you supporting them with those needs before they go and commit an offence? Things like that.
People are crying out for help in there and, before they go in.
Yeah. What else did they mention?
So prison officers Prison officers can have a massive say in you getting early release. As we talked about the IEP scheme.
Yeah.
That can have a significant impact on you being eligible. So now we're talking about it's down to the prison officer. Whether they give you an IEP, how they feel on that day, or, what might stop you getting out early.
Yes. And I think I mentioned it earlier, there's a question mark on it. And that's why I say it gets blurry. Yeah, it gets a bit blurry because, like you said, we're all human beings, right? You could have a bad day and then someone said something and it's like, IEP. That IEP can potentially stop someone from getting out at the third mark, at the 1/3 mark. If, for example, it results in them not being enhanced, or say it results in someone getting an adjudication, right? Just like it will stop you going to DCAT, it's going to stop you.
I want to say, I don't know how I was going to say, I don't know how I feel about having somebody else decide whether I get out early or not. But we're talking about people decide whether you go to prison or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all down to people at the end of the day and their view and opinion on the situation or how they might feel that day.
Yes, but
it
gets deeper. Say there's a prison officer you don't get on with.
Yeah.
They could just they could just say, you know what, cool.
Of course.
Be at IEPs. Then what? Is it fair?
I don't think any of it is really down.
I'm just saying. But what I did say in that conversation is, I expect there to be an emphasis on fairer IEPs or a push towards positive. So rather than negative reinforcement, a more focus on positive reinforcement.
Yeah, I like that.
So, for example, remember early release? Fix up your behavior. I'll put positive recommendations down. Let's keep the wing tidier. Positive recommendation. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That way,
more rewards than
more as a reward. Like
Yeah.
rather than saying, "Oh, we're gonna take your early release.
yeah,
We're gonna support you for early release."
yeah.
Do you get what I'm
There
saying?
you go.
That's what I hope.
There you
again,
go.
Again, I'm hoping. We don't know, but I'm hoping that that's the focus. I hope.
We will see. To
Yeah.
be continued.
To be continued. And as we do on Life After Prison, we like to signpost organizations, but specifically for this, if you want to learn more about the sentencing reform, or you need support with navigating prison or probation, especially if you're in the community, we've dropped some links in the description of organizations that can support you, from the likes of the Prison Reform Trust, the Howard League, Women in Prison, and many more. So if that speaks to you, please check out these organizations and hopefully they can support you.
You can listen to Life After Prison on all our usual platforms, and you can watch it on YouTube. If you want to follow us on socials, our Instagram and X is @AfterPrisonPod, and TikTok is Life After Prison Pod. You can also email us at podcast@prison.radio, and if you're inside, we will put our phone number at the end of the show. So check us out there, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, take care.